Salamat siang semuanya. Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our online forum, ASEAN Heritage Parks and COVID-19, Impacts, Responses, and Recovery, an event organized by the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, or ACB, and the Directorate General of Conservation on Natural Resources and Ecosystem of Indonesia's Ministry of Environment and Forestry. I am Earl Diaz, head of the ACB's Communication and Public Affairs Unit. The ACB is an intergovernmental organization that facilitates cooperation and coordination among the 10 ASEAN member states and their partners on the conservation of biodiversity and sustainable use of natural resources in the region. And on the 27th of this month, the ACB will be celebrating its 15th anniversary. We have quite a number of activities lined up, so please make sure to visit our website, www.aseanbiodiversity.org, for news updates and to get more information about the center. Today's webinar, which will focus on protected areas in the ASEAN region, is part of a series of COVID-19 related online events. The first in the series was the webinar on biodiversity and preventing future pandemics, which was held in May. More recently, we have two interactive webinars on the ASEAN youth and COVID-19, one in July and one just last month. On behalf of the organizers, I thank each and every one of you for joining us in this webinar. Apart from Zoom, we are streaming live both on Facebook and YouTube. If you're there, please give us a shout out by typing your name, your country, and your affiliation on the comment boxes. Allow me to briefly explain some of the Zoom controls that you can use. At the bottom of your screen, you will see a chat box where you can read some more announcements and information. Beside it is the Q&A box where you can type in your questions for our speakers. In just a few minutes, we will learn more about the important role of protected areas, not just in biodiversity conservation, but also in coping with outbreaks of zoonosis. More importantly, we are given the opportunity to hear from the caretakers of some of the best protected areas in the ASEAN, or the ASEAN Heritage Parks. These officials of today's featured ASEAN Heritage Parks are the best source of information about the most effective approaches when it comes to caring for and guarding the rich biodiversity in their respective parks. Also, like all other entrepreneurs and business operators, our guest ASEAN Heritage Park officials have to deal with the challenges in operations and revenue losses caused by the COVID-19 pandemic. Today, we will hear directly from them how their respective parks are dealing with the pandemic and how they are dealing with the new normal. We'll be reading questions here, and for those watching through Facebook Live and YouTube, send those questions to us through the live comment section. Kindly include your name and organization and to whom you're addressing your question to. Before I give the screen to our speakers, we would like to introduce you to the wonders of ASEAN Heritage Parks. Their natural beauty is a source of the region's pride. Here's a short video for us to know more about the ASEAN Heritage Parks.
First envisioned in 1978 as a group of national parks and nature reserves with outstanding wilderness and biodiversity values, the ASEAN Heritage Parks, or the AHP program, was established to highlight the importance of a select group of protected areas in regional and global efforts in biodiversity conservation. The AHPs were created through the ASEAN Declaration on Heritage Parks and Reserves in 1984, which named the first 11 protected areas listed under the AHP program. A new declaration on ASEAN Heritage Parks was issued in 2003, which recognized additional AHPs. ASEAN Heritage Parks are protected areas of high conservation importance,
preserving a complete spectrum of representative ecosystems in the ASEAN region.
These areas are established to generate greater awareness, pride, appreciation, enjoyment, and conservation of ASEAN's rich natural heritage
through a regional network of representative protected areas and to generate greater collaboration among ASEAN member states in preserving their shared natural heritage.
Can you imagine how proud the visitors of Singaporeans are when they come and learn that Sungai Buloh is a member of the ASEAN Heritage Park?
For a protected area to be an AHP, it has to meet a number of selection criteria which include ecological completeness, representativeness, naturalness, high conservation importance, legally gazetted conservation area, has an approved management plan, transboundary uniqueness, high ethnobiological significance, and importance for endangered or precious biodiversity.
Mountain Bigitan has been included in the network of ASEAN Heritage Parks of the ASEAN region, and it means that it's already part of the best protected areas in the ASEAN. To become an ASEAN Heritage Park, it has a lot also of benefits, while at the same time it has challenges to carry out in order to maintain the outstanding values.
The ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, or ACB, currently serves as the secretariat of the AHP program and the AHP committee, with representatives from the 10 AMS as members. The ASEAN Heritage Parks are the best of the best protected areas in the region, not only for its biodiversity richness, but also for the effective management of these areas as a result of cooperation and coordination among its stakeholders.
ရက်ရွာအနေနဲ့ကျတော့ကျွန်တော်တို့ကအခုမှဘယ်လိုခေါ်မလဲဆိုတော့အချိန်ယူဆဲကာလလို့ပဲပြောရမှာပေါ့နော်ရက်ရွာကဒီပေါ်မှာတော့သူတို့နားလဲတယ်ဒါပေမဲ့ထဲထဲဝင်ပူပေါင်းဖို့ကျတော့သူတို့မဖြစ်သေးဘူးပေါ့နော်တိတ်ပြီးတော့လိုက်ပြီးမချိန်နိုင်သေးဘူးဆိုတာတိတော့တိနေပြီတိနေပေမဲ့ဒါကိုသူတို့ကပြန်ပြီးတော့တန်းတနေတော့မရှိသေးတယ်
The existence of AHPs gives us hope that by working together, we can ensure that our natural treasures will be sustained for the generations to come.
All right. Please make sure to add these ASEAN Heritage Parks in your list of places to visit. That's definitely something to look forward to when the pandemic is over. To learn more about the ASEAN Heritage Parks, you can follow our social media accounts on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. Here are our social media handles. So, let us begin today's event by hearing from one of the ASEAN's leaders. First, we have the Director General of Conservation on Natural Resources and Ecosystem of Indonesia's Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Previously, he served as the manager of the Gunung Loiser National Park, which is one of the ASEAN heritage parks in Indonesia. Let us welcome the Director General of Conservation on Natural Resources and Ecosystem, Pa Wiratno.
Thank you very much, Jonathan. And what a such a beautiful heritage we have in ASEAN. And I think we have to be proud of our natural capitals. In my opinion, my personal opinion, wow, we have to hand over the heritage, also their beauty, to the next generation. I believe, and we have to do this very heavy task to hand over the heritage to our grandchildren. And right now we are facing the pandemic that have changed a lot of way of thinking and our lifestyle right now across the globe, including in Indonesia and also I believe in ASEAN countries. Yeah, I will give a very short message to the ASEAN members, the ASEAN heritage leaders, and also to all to those who believe that we have to go back to nature. We learn a lot from the pandemic COVID-19. Second slide, please. Yeah, we have protected areas in Indonesia. We have a 27.14 million hectare, and part of it is also belong to or label as World Heritage, ASEAN Heritage, Biosphere Reserve, also the Ramsar site. I just remind us that the protected areas have the message on the very important as a life support system, supporting services like fresh water, clean water for consumption, for agriculture, also regulating services, protected areas as a center of, I believe, it is a challenge for us, protected areas as a center for any development option. Protected areas also have or giving cultural services. In Indonesia, I think also in ASEAN countries, the link and there is an historical bound between local people and customary people, traditional people to the protected areas, even to the forest or marine natural resources. That's we should remind in our mind and our belief. There is a long history between biodiversity environmental services to the development of any culture that is very unique for each protected areas. So, please, next slide, please. And there is an close, almost direct link between COVID-19 and the protected areas, and the way forward we have to handle or manage protected areas, our ASEAN heritage. Of course, first is negative impact of protected areas that we have to close down on the ecotourism side. In Indonesia, we closed down all. We just open several of them and control very strictly. Negative impact, meaning in ecotourism that also impact to the local economic of the local people who where their life depending on the ecotourism activities. There is also a positive impact of the COVID-19 that it seems that the wildlife, they are much happier because mostly if there are many tourists coming to the national park and then suddenly we close down and there is almost nobody except the staff monitor the park, and then we monitor that they are much happier and nobody coming to their home, and that is also important, very important. And as a response that we improve the monitoring for wildlife, also socialization impact, and including monitoring if there is a problem of zoonosis. In many park in Indonesia, like in Bukit Baka, Bukit Raya, even there are for orang utan, release orang utan, they gave a birth. There are new baby born during the COVID. It is interesting. The recovery aspect of the COVID-19 that right now is still happening in Indonesia. In the case of Indonesia, we have to control the ecotourism is not the mass tourism. Even during the COVID, we open several very interesting park, and we have to control strongly with the visitor. They obey all the COVID protocol, and it is not easy. I just opened the park, and yesterday I closed the park because there is a problem of crowded, and they they didn't obey the COVID-19 protocol. We also think about the issue of healing forest that in many countries it is already popular. Forest is not only for vacation or outdoor recreation. Forest can heal many of the disease problems. Next slide, please. A challenge and a solution. Uh, it is easy to say living in harmony with nature. It is already stated globally, and maybe in the next CBD, maybe living in harmony with nature. But how to implement this? How to break down the philosophy of living in harmony in the planning stage or in the implementation stage? It is all the challenges. Uh, Also, the challenge is in the how to improve environmental services of the protected areas. right now, almost in Indonesia, almost 6 months of the COVID-19, and it seems that there will be more months that we have to adapt with the new normal. So important to consider how to improve the environmental services in the protected areas. Another issue is also uh, how to strengthen the strategy of One Health movement that requires uh, involvement of all sectors, private sector, government from central to local level, also the private sector, the NGOs, all the the member of the community into the strategy of One Health uh, campaigns, for instance. That is also the challenge. Um, and Indonesia, we are right now developing, and COVID-19 forced us to, so we call it, try to develop the bioprospecting. The medicinal plant have to be discovered and the research, and it's very important maybe for possibly for solution of the COVID and so on and so forth. So we treat the COVID-19 pandemic as a challenges, but challenges, and at the same time an opportunity for us. Let's do work hand in hand on the basis of science. And I think my message is for the ASEAN countries, we should work closer to find the vaccine, maybe the new vaccine of the COVID-19, and from our natural heritage. With that, I have to stop my short message, and please have a discussion furthermore with I also there is my director of biodiversity conservation, Ibu Indra, also follow this discussion, and I will leave this this message. Thank you very much, Jonathan, and all the ASEAN heritage leaders. Let's have always a positive narration for the future under COVID-19. Thank you very much. Selamat siang.
Terima kasih banyak, Pak Wiratno.
Terima kasih, Pak Jonathan.
Next, we have the leader at the helm of the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. She has served as the chair of the Convention on Biological Diversity, subsidiary body on scientific, technical, and technological advice. And as she is recognized by many as a true biodiversity expert, a group of scientists chose to name a recently discovered plant species after her, the Medinilla therisei. To share with us the roles of protected areas in the COVID-19 response, may I present our Executive Director, Dr. Teresa Mondita Lim.
Thank you very much, Earl. Can you okay. Thank you very much, Earl. To Pak Wiratno, Director General of the of Conservation and Nature Resources and Ecosystems of the Ministry of Environment and Forestry, who actually who gave a very good overview of the situation of protected areas in Indonesia in terms of how they are handling the pandemic at the moment. And I see that there's a lot of learnings from the way he presented, from his presentation. I a lot of commonalities with other ASEAN members in the region, and that was really a very useful start of this webinar. Of course, Ibu Indra Exploitasya, Director of Biodiversity Conservation, Ministry of Environment and Forestry of Indonesia. Mr. Abdul Jalil Abraman, Execo Member of Bird Group Taman Negara, Community of Kuala Tahan, Taman Negara National Park of Malaysia. Professor Ani Mardiastuti from Bogor Agricultural University of the Republic of Indonesia. Distinguished panel of speakers, partners, friends from the media. Good afternoon from hot and humid part of north of Manila. I wish I could also show you. I'm in a nature area, so it's just very apt that I am delivering my message to you from this place today. So on behalf of the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, allow me to express our sincerest gratitude to the Directorate General of Conservation on Natural Resources and Ecosystem and the Ministry of Environment and Forestry of the Republic of Indonesia for graciously co-organizing this online event. And for everyone here in Zoom and Facebook, thank you for joining us in this timely webinar. Today, in this webinar, we are highlighting protected areas, the communities living around these areas, and the pandemic affected their socioeconomic conditions. Through this webinar, we hope to hear more from our frontliners for our environment. I am glad that we are by the managers of protected areas, ASEAN heritage parks, such as Tubatanis National Park in the Philippines, Kepulauan Seribu National Park in Indonesia, Wang Yang National Park in Vietnam, and Taman National Park in Malaysia. The act recognizes the immense role of its biodiversity-rich areas, not only as means to prevent future pandemics, but also in the region's recovery post-COVID-19. As you are aware, the ASEAN region is home to an abundance of diverse biological resources. It is the habitat of 18% of the world's all known plants and animals. These biodiversity areas provide resources for nourishment, shelter, and even medicine. People and communities depend on biodiversity for their livelihood and survival, as here. Hence, the sustainable use of resources is essential for the present and future generations. Establishing and managing protected areas is regarded as the most tool in ensuring the protection and conservation of our ecosystems and biodiversity. More than their breathtaking views and the ecosystem services that they provide, these natural parks and protected areas could also be the key in mitigating the impacts of these outbreaks, and more importantly, even preventing them. The COVID-19 pandemic reminded us that many of these wildlife species could be natural reservoir for viruses that has result to pandemics such as COVID-19. When their habitats are encroached by reservoir species are driven towards settlements, increasing the risk of virus transmission to domestic animals, eventually to humans. Conservation efforts at the ecosystem level, best solutions to prevent future and keep wildlife species and their inherent viruses in the safety of their natural habitat. The ASEAN, with support from the ASEAN, has been working on establishing protected areas and continues supporting existing ones. This has become even more crucial now as we build a new normal amid the ongoing pandemic. One of ASEAN's flagship programs, the ASEAN Heritage Parks Program, of which the ACB serves as secretary, recognizes and supports the clearing of the crop of protected areas in the region. In the ASEAN region, there are 2,000 total, more than 800,000 square kilometers in the region. Of these, 14 designated as heritage parks or AHPs. These AHPs are outstanding protected areas of high conservation importance that conserve a wide array of ecosystems in the region. Their high feature earned them a nomination to be declared a truly ASEAN Heritage Park. We're proud to say that in Indonesia, ASEAN Heritage Parks are the National Park, Gunung Sir National Park, Ren National Park, Ambas National Park, Kepulauan Seribu National Park, Wakatobi National Park, Park. The program also encourages the ASEAN member states to set conservation to recognize as park. First, under a stringent process to ensure they pass the discerning criteria of logical completeness, naturalness, high conservation, and represent a wide variety of ecosystems or species typical of the particular. The benefits of the parks and their surrounding community is training, capacity development, and live babies are also known tourism sites as well. The pandemic, however, has not spared the protected areas, including the AHPs. The pandemic as well earlier. Some parks have to be temporarily shut down because of the mandatory lockdown and movement. Inevitable in loss of livelihood, particularly among the industry. To better understand the vulnerable situation and protect the global health crisis, the ACB conducted a preliminary online survey among protected area managers from 26 April to 16th of June. Among the surveyed park officials, 72% said areas encompassed due to the closure of protected areas. The enforcement activities of the AHPs have also been affected. Due to the lockdown. As an adaptation measure, local communities were mobilized helping the patrol, while some parks continued conducting participatory law enforcement. While park patrolling activities have been limited, most of the local governments have put up checkpoints to enforce the community lockdown, which also helped in decreasing illegal activities such as poaching. The gravity of COVID-19 crisis only required urgent responses. However, time and resource limitations pose further challenges to existing conservation and tourism programs, while the local related relief program. This resulted in downscaling of the conservation programs that ultimately affect not just the protected area itself, but the communities that depend on it. And protected areas are finding ways to be productive even during the lockdowns. The remaining activities such as monitoring, surveillance, and detection particularly zoonotic diseases, and taking on effort to increase awareness on protecting ecosystems and its link to wildlife that may be suspected carriers of infectious diseases. The consequences of COVID-19 pandemic are challenging, not just for our public health systems, but for our protected areas as well. Know, however, that these challenges are not insurmountable. Regional collaboration and concerted efforts, particularly in the exchange of information such as this online survey and this webinar that we are conducting now, contribute to strengthening our strategies and developing policies on biodiversity conservation. This conversation is just the start. We aim to further work with the ASEAN member states and our regional partners to take on a more integrated and holistic long-term approach in responding to the pandemic and building a better normal. Once again, thank you everyone for your participation in this webinar. I'm sure we will learn valuable knowledge and information from our esteemed resource persons today. Thank you very much, and I wish you well. And I'm really I look forward to a very productive discussion today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mundita. Indeed, these challenges are not insurmountable. Thank you for sharing to us the importance of protected areas and ASEAN heritage parks. For those who have just joined us, welcome to the online forum on ASEAN heritage parks and COVID-19 impacts, responses, and recovery, hosted by Indonesia's Directorate General of Conservation on Natural Resources and Ecosystem and the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity. In case you have questions for our speakers, please send those questions in through the Q&A box in Zoom or through the comment sections of Facebook Live and YouTube. You can get the chance to have your questions answered by our guests today. Our next speaker studied as a doctor of veterinary medicine and served as the Director of Forest Prevention and Protection in the Directorate General of Law Enforcement. Since 2018, she has served as the Director of Biodiversity Conservation, Directorate General of Conservation on Natural Resources and Ecosystem of Indonesia's Ministry of Environment and Forestry. Ladies and gentlemen, may I present Ibu Indra Exploitasya.
Hello everybody, good afternoon. Hope every day is good with the good healthy and with the hope the pandemic will be over and we are still in good shape and healthy. So thank you Pak Errol Diaz and Ibu Mundita for your good remarks. And today I'm here with Ibu Ning, my Deputy Director. She will present about how we can live and with the situation of the pandemic. And I will make an introduction for Ibu Ning for her presentation about the related biodiversity relation with the pandemic COVID. Our presentation is about protect our forest to promote healthier environment, and I will make a introduction before Buning will continue the presentation. First of all, we are now aware that the conservation are in the ex situ and in situ conservation. So in the in situ conservation, we are dealing with how we can make environment is more healthier, and we don't know right now what kind of disease are in situ, because right now we are now have data that some animal or wildlife have become a reservoir from the cause of COVID-19. And we know that the SARS-CoV-2 from the bat, yeah, we are now that we have an research that bat, rodent, and primate as an wildlife that potential risk to be a source of the transmission of the COVID. So in this presentation, Buning will explain that how the linkage of this biodiversity conservation in situ and ex situ, the linkage is about how can the transmission of disease could be spread from the in situ to the ex situ, and how can ex situ could also possible transmitted and spread the disease. So the concept of One Health, as we are aware, there are three parts how to make health in environment, health in wildlife, or health in animal, and how make an healthy human. So this concept of One Health, Buning will explain further what kind of program and activities that we have already implemented in the context of the program of One Health. So this is the introduction that I can explain, and Buning, I will invite you to make a presentation and more explanation about how the linkage between biodiversity conservation with the disease, especially how we can make an adaptation and new normal for the pandemic of this pandemic, and especially in how we can control the COVID-19 with the healthier environment. Please, Buning. Buning, are you there?
Thank you. Yes, thank you, Ibu Indra, Pak Dirjen, Ibu Ani, Ibu Teresia Mudita, and distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Has been mentioned by Ibu Indra that there are a very huge and very intense link between the ex situ and in situ conservation. As we may all aware that the target of IC target is one of our decade action declared in Nagoya on 2010 to achieve the vision 2050, living in harmony with nature. So when it is expected that we are living in harmony with nature, it will help us to feel free and to peace, and also there's no conflict with nature. So it has been achieved in somehow consistent with the three pillars of the conservation and protection, preservation, and also utilization of the biodiversity. For that, Indonesia has established more than 500 protected area, and some of them has been designated to be an ASEAN Heritage Park for its uniqueness in the ASEAN region. Next slide, please. Indonesia, as it shows in the screen, more than 500 is spread out in Indonesia. In the west of Pulau Island, and in the east is Papua Island. And some of them have been declared as the international status. For example, is the World Heritage Site. We have the Lawrence, and then also tropical heritage rainforest, and also Komodo, and also the Ujung Kulon National Park. It's also 11 areas have been designated as biosphere reserve, because this is also important for the people who live surrounding the protected area. Considering the migratory birds and also wetland, we also have at least 7 Ramsar sites. And what we discussed since this afternoon, Indonesia also have 7 areas have been designated as ASEAN Heritage Parks. All this area has been conserved and protected is to maintain and to keep the Indonesian mega diversity. In the next slide. So as you may aware, we have more than 100,000 flora, includes spermatopods and plants, and also more than 700 mammals, invertebrate, and also birds, as well as the butterfly and any reptiles, and also amphibia. One of the challenges in managing this biodiversity and achieving the living in harmony is actually our commitment in managing the balancing of the ecosystem value, the function, and the impact. It could be the emerging infectious disease. So considering the importance of this biodiversity in maintaining the equitable and balancing ecosystem, particularly in addressing the infectious disease, Indonesia has involved and implement the concept of One Health. Ibu Indra have been mentioned before that is combining the healthy environment, healthy animals, and healthy people. In the next slide, we see the fact of the zoonosis and emerging infectious disease. At least we take note that 60% of existing human infectious disease are zoonosis, and 75% is emerging of emerging infectious disease of human, including Ebola, HIV, influenza, have the animal origins. And 5% new human diseases appear every year. 3 are of animal origin. And the 80% of the agent with the potential bioterrorist use are zoonotic pathogen. So, ladies and gentlemen, if I can say that this is very important, if we can see the next slide, is the important and between the link between what is in situ and the ex situ activities. So when we are talking about the environmental quality and also in the outside, in the in situ area, and also what can be done when we disrupt or we utilize the environment and the the potential of it, so it can raise some case on pandemic in the world. On the other hand, the damage of the environment can be driving the emergence of disease. So it's kind of spill back and spill over to the area, the in situ and the ex situ, where we live and the suitable habitat. For that, in the next slide, and have been mentioned by Ibu Indra, that when we are talking about the One Health, which is consists of environment health, human health, and also animal health, so it cannot be separated. So it should be the one concept that should be implemented and come together and collaborate multi-sectoral and also transdisciplinary approach, recognizing the interconnection between peoples, animals, plant, and the shared environment. So we cannot just say that we will save the environment only without thinking about the human. And we cannot also say only for the animal health, keeping animal health without thinking the impact to your human health. So it should be coordinating, communicating, and collaborating between those 3 aspects to achieve the goal of the best health outcome for the people and also the environment and also the wildlife. For that, in the next slide is Indonesian forest. We recognize, take note the benefit of the forest and also biodiversity for the health, especially for the resource of medicine with phytopharmaca. And now we also exploring much for how the benefit of forest and biodiversity for the pharmacy and also ecotourism healing have been mentioned by Pak Dirjen, Pak Wiratno, and also Bu Indra, that one of the important things that why we protected the protected area and also ASEAN Heritage Park is for healing ourselves, healing the ecological and also the therapy is for our improve our health and also for at least the increase the natural killer immune cells. So in the concept of that we didn't know yet the value of each species that we have, especially when we have a lot of huge of the biodiversity. So bioprospecting is very important and it might be important for the people health. So all biodiversity in forest and outside, in situ and ex situ is really life support for the communities, especially for the people who live around the forest. And then the next slide is about the policy of wildlife management during the COVID. We would like to inform you what Indonesia has been done to address the COVID-19 pandemic. So we already deliver instruction, but Dirjen already deliver instruction for the prevention of the spread of the new infectious disease and zoonotic for all conservation area manager in Indonesia since March 2020, when the first time Indonesia also affected by COVID-19, and we also have the very physical distancing and also social distancing at that time. So Ministry of Environment and Forestry issues technical guideline for the prevention of COVID-19 transmission to human and wildlife in general conservation institution, especially for conservation institution and also captivity. It has been done under April. So every month we evaluate, time by time we also evaluate the progress, the situation, the existing situation. And temporary suspension of the release of wildlife and temporary closure of the conservation area. So, and also call for closure of the traditional wet animal market to local governments in the context of precautions for the spread of COVID-19 and zoonotic disease. So all this effort is to halt the spread of the COVID-19, and especially we are dealing with any time, day by day, time by time to mitigate, to handling, to address all the pandemic that may be raised because of our condition, our environmental, that we somehow we aware that it's have been decrease the quality of environment. For that, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to close this presentation with one quote that have been stated here is Earth provide enough to satisfy every man's need, but not every man's greed. So this is I try to quote from the Mahatma Gandhi. So good afternoon, and may you have all good health and good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you, Ibu Ning.
Terima kasih banyak, Ibu Indra dan Ibu Nining.
Sama-sama, you're welcome.
We have barely reached the midpoint of our webinar, but as we have heard from our opening speakers, we have already learned quite a lot about the importance of ASEAN heritage parks and protected areas relative to the ongoing COVID-19 pandemic. Protecting our biodiversity-rich areas is indeed a concrete measure for us to enhance human, animal, and environmental health. While the impacts of COVID-19 may seem grave, no challenge is insurmountable. The lockdowns have given our ecosystem some time to recover. For example, a newly born orangutan in one of the Indonesia's protected area is symbolic of how life continues to thrive. However, we have much work to do as a region. National and regional collaborations and concerted efforts contribute greatly to strengthening our strategies toward biodiversity conservation. Given our limitations with all these lockdowns, conversations such as this online discussion is just the start. Now, I can see a couple of questions have already been sent to us. And to moderate the first part of the Q&A, we have a wildlife biologist who is the chair of the board of BirdLife Indonesia and also a board member of the Indonesia Biodiversity Foundation. Apart from these, she is currently a board member of WWF Indonesia. Now, from the Faculty of Forestry and Environment of the Bogor Agricultural University, let us welcome Professor Ani Mardiastuti.
Thank you all. Good afternoon to our esteemed guest speakers, Pak Wiratno, Executive Director of ACB, Dr. Mundita, Ibu Indra Exploitasia, to all our participants. I hope you are all safe and healthy. So this is the first of the two Q&A question and answer segments that we are having today. I have read quite a number of interesting questions from our participants. Let us start with this one. I have to select 3 of the questions among all of the questions that are over there. So let me read one by one. I hope Pak Wiratno is still around. Otherwise, then I will ask Ibu Indra also to help with the answering the questions. The first question is from Victor Luna Amin. Is there any scientific evidence that mammals in general in Indonesia can be infected by COVID-19 since the inception of the pandemic? Second question is from Pantiati Pati of Yayasan Kanopi Indonesia. This is to Pak Wir, so hopefully Bu Indra can help us to answer this question. Will every national park in Indonesia make COVID protocol to control all activity in their area, maybe including ecotourism, field research, etc.? And then the third questions, how do protected areas help in the drive to combat illegal wildlife trade? I think Bu Indra also used to work with the DG that involved in the wildlife trade. Maybe she can also help. Okay, maybe Ibu Indra first before Ibu Nining maybe will add. Bu Indra?
Yes, thank you, Bu Ani, for your help to make the question is making more clear. First, that I have to answer that the question is about the linkage between wildlife disease and how mammal can infected by the disease. Yes, many journal and there's a lot of research confirm that the mammal, especially primate, as potentially as a source and also potentially risk as a zoonosis, as a potential as a potential source and infected by human or livestock around the conservation areas. So as we are aware that the zoonosis disease is a disease that can transmitted to human, and also human can also transmit a disease to wildlife. So this is we call zoonosis. What I mentioned before, that we have research on 3 animal, bats, rodent, and primate, as a potentially become animal that have similar disease that we with the human. For examples, like SARS, Ebola, Nipah, from the rabies. Yeah, this is the disease that common in bats and also common also infected to the human. This is the
the answer for the first question. And for the second question about we have a protocol in national park. Yes, yeah, we have a protocol to entering the national park. We have a protocol to avoid the spread of disease of the pandemic. Especially in the conservation in situ, there's a potential, it's very risky to make human transmission disease. Yeah, especially we have no evidence. There's so limited research for the disease in situ. So we have to be careful that when we entering the national park, we can transmission the disease from us to the natural habitat. So the protocol is very stricted when we are entering the national park. The third question is about wildlife trafficking. Yes, this the new hot issues of Bu Ani, ya, about how transmission the disease through the illegal wildlife trade. As we are aware, there is a legal wildlife trade. So right now that we have make a communication with the OIE. OIE is the World Animal Health Organization, WAHO, to make a collaboration with the CITES for these issues, because legal wildlife trade also is a potentially instrument that we also can transmit the disease when we do the activities of legal trade. So it's not just the issues of illegal, because we have to also aware that there's a potential risk also for the wildlife trade, legal wildlife trade. This is the answer maybe Pak Bu Ani.
Thank you, Ibu Indra. Ibu Nining, do you have some additional information?
I think it's already answered by
Okay.
Ibu Indra. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So ladies and gentlemen, it seems that we need to remind ourselves, and also Bu Indra remind us that very important things. Two important things. One is that the disease is not only transmitted from wildlife to us, but we also can transmit it to wildlife. So we need to be very careful also maybe we deals with endangered species with a very limited population number. So hopefully we are not transmitting diseases to them. And then the second thing that very important also from Ibu Indra, that the transmission of the disease is not only from the illegal wildlife trade. That's also very important, because we keep discussing about illegal wildlife trade, but in fact, from legal wildlife trade, it can also transmit disease, yeah, that we call zoonotic disease. So thank you very much, Ibu Indra. I hope you can stay with us until the end, because we will have another Q&A later on. So again, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Bu Ani. Can I?
Yes.
Because I have also another meeting, so Bu Ning will stand by in this meeting.
Okay.
Thank you very much, Bu Ani, and all the participants for this webinar. Thank you, Bu.
Okay, Bu Indra, before you leave, can you have a short message to all of us?
Yeah, I think that's many message. I think.
Or comments or message.
Yes. Hope this pandemic, COVID, maybe as a momentum for us, to starting how to make an introspection for it's ourselves, and how we can manage more better, healthier environment, because we know that Earth is very old, very old. So maybe we can change our attitude, our behavior to make this Earth become more convenience as a place to live. So hope also wildlife and the balance of the ecosystems with our activities could be more what we call harmonized, and the vision of the what we call the living in harmony in nature, not as a jargon, but it's also as our vision. It's in ourselves, so we can change our behavior, so the living in harmony could be achieved in 2020, after post 2020, and we can make the better future for this earth. Thank you, Bu Ani.
Thank you, Bu Indra. This is a very deep message. So thank you again. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, also, oh yeah, thank you also to all of our participants who sent in their questions. So we will have another Q&A later on. So please keep on sending us questions. Now, we will move on to the interactive part of our webinar. We have heard or read about how COVID-19 has greatly impacted businesses, different modes of transportation, schools, among others. And this time, let us get to know about how ASEAN Heritage Park have been affected by the pandemic. As you have seen in the video presented earlier today, ASEAN Heritage Park are protected areas that have high conservation importance and are able to preserve different ecosystems. ASEAN Heritage Parks serve as home to various plants and animal species, some of which may be endangered. This is the reason why ASEAN Heritage Park need to be maintained to ensure that our wildlife will always have a safe haven. To share with us the current state about their respective ASEAN Heritage Park, several important resource persons are with us today. So we have the superintendent of one of the marine ASEAN Heritage Park, the Tubataha Reefs Natural Park. Under her management, Tubataha is recognized as a model marine protected area in the Coral Triangle. Apart from this, Tubataha was also recognized as one of the 3 best managed no-take marine protected areas in the world. From Tubataha Reef Natural Park of the Philippines, Ms. Angelique Songko. Next.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone.
Hi, Angelique.
Hi.
Okay, so we have another marine park here. So from Kepulauan Seribu National Park in Indonesia, we have Ms. Badiah Ahmad Said, and this national park is very unique. It comprises of 78 islands and has some unique vegetation and coastal ecosystem. And this is also located not too far from Jakarta. So we will know from her how it will impact the tourism and everything else.
Hi, Bu Ani. Good afternoon for everyone.
Hi, Ibu Badiah. Okay, next we will move on to terrestrial park. We have the Deputy Head of Planning and Finance of Vietnam's ASEAN Heritage Park, where the country's highest mountain can be found. So this is the national park with, it has lots and lots of mountains. He has been the coordinator and implementer of different projects funded by various organizations such as Flora and Fauna International. Let us welcome from Vietnam's Hoang Lien National Park, Mr. Nguyen Tan Tam. Hi, Mr. Nguyen. Okay, I hope you were there. Yes. Thank you. Next, we also would like to hear from the representative from the local community. So it is also important that we hear the perspective to our indigenous people, from our indigenous people and local communities, to give us a better understanding on how the indigenous people and local communities are adjusting to the pandemic. We have with us an executive committee member of Bird Group Taman Negara. He is also the founder of Taman Negara Young Birder, as well as the Taman Negara Bird Count. From Malaysia's first and oldest protected area, the Taman Negara National Park, Mr. Abdul Jalil bin Abdul Rahman. Pak Abdul Jalil, apa kabar? Okay then. Okay, so to all of the resource person, we will ask you the same thing, but please, because there are many persons that will be involved here, we will limit your answer to 3 minutes only, because it will be then there will be more opportunities for question and answer. So the question is basically related to how the park on the site, on the location, the reef park experience during the COVID-19 pandemic. So what is the experience? And then also how it affects on the protected area, on biodiversity, and on the staff, on the community, and also what is the action that has been taken so far. But please limit to that, because later on we will discuss more about the future plans and also the lesson learned. So for now, please limit yourself to what is the current situation, and then how it will affect everything, everybody within the park. Okay, hope I will make myself clear. Let me start with the Philippines. Miss Angelique. Yes, could you share your experience from your site to Batahari Natural Park?
Thank you. Well, since our office was established in 2001, we were experiencing annual growth in tourism. And even if the growth is kind of small relatively, it was a major increase for us because our tourism window is very narrow. We only have 12 weeks in which we are open to tourism every year. However, the revenues that we make from tourism fund 50% of the park operations, pays the salary of staff, and the allowances of law enforcers from other agencies. The projected number of tourists for 2020 was 3,900 for us, or a 12% increase from last year. And we were expecting a revenue of $21,000 over the revenues that we made last year. This does sound a lot, but for us in real life, that's a lot of money. And we lost this revenue because of COVID. And from the 3,400 that we had last year of visitors, we only had 139 this year. And so there goes our tourism revenues. And we did not only lose money, however, because we also lost the opportunity educate people and to inspire them to support conservation. So the educational advantage of having tourists experience your site has also been lost because of the pandemic. Tubataha is usually national and international media. During the diving season, which was from March to June in our case, and when people come and visit us, we are able to develop a public constituency that supports conservation of Tubataha and that supports marine conservation also in general. So we lost that opportunity. We lost the income also from other activities such as merchandising and voluntary contributions from tourists. Did you say what did we do? The effects of this. Okay. So only 3, I think, liveaboard vessels were able to visit because at the height of the season was when we had to close the park. That was a national guideline, however. But then in the case of enforcement, we were able to rotate the marine park rangers. You see, marine park rangers stay in Tubataha for 2 months at a stretch. And even during the pandemic, we were able to rotate them, even if there was a lockdown, because we are partners with the Philippine Coast Guard and the Philippine Navy, and the government allows them to move about in the country. And so we were able to do this. And because of the help of other agencies, all the rotations of the law enforcement people in the park was done on time. And patrols were undertaken as scheduled and whenever necessary. Management trips to the park was kind of delayed, but nevertheless, we were able to conduct all the researches that we had lined up for the year. And TMO was also closed for 2 months at the beginning. TMO is our office, Tubataha Management Office. So from mid-March, I believe, to mid-May, we were closed. And we hardly had any news from the field. Well, they say that no news is good news. And so, they were okay. By mid-May, work had resumed. But to this day, only half of our workforce reports to the office. The rest of us work at home. And, there are some challenges with working at home as well. We are very lucky because during the pandemic, we received our full salaries, which was more than we can say for many other people.
Yes.
Our observations in Tubataha was that we had a lot less garbage. Usually we would get a lot of floating marine debris in the area, but we had a lot less at the time of the pandemic. We only did one apprehension of illegal fishing boat, and this was a guy whose GPS was malfunctioning. We checked, and so we let him go. And yeah, so far that's what happened.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Okay, let's now hear from another experience. This is a Marine National Park also. From Kepulauan Seribu, Indonesia, Ibu Badiah.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon for everyone. Kepulauan Seribu National Park is located in Jakarta Province, which is Indonesia capital city. And in the middle of March, when COVID-19 began infecting Jakarta people, Jakarta is epicentrum of COVID-19. And then Governor of Jakarta decided to impose a large-scale social distancing policy. Students must study from home, and employers also must work from home. Following the governor regulation, Kepulauan Seribu National Park also closed from tourism activities since 16 March. And then following the regular boat transportation from Jakarta mainland to Kepulauan Seribu Island stopped totally. It was Coast National Park staff who most of them come from surrounding Jakarta, didn't able to do patrol and ecosystem monitoring for almost 3 months. this situation was getting worse when one of our staff was infected by COVID-19. Local people didn't allow national park staff to come to the field. So it is very difficult for us because only 20% our staff live in island. Talking to the impact to the local people, like Patatuha National Park, Kepulauan Seribu National Park is one of top 10 priority destination of tourism. So many local people lose their income because totally closed from the tourism. Most of them return to be a fisherman to meet their daily food. And on that time, there is very decrease the price of fish because there is no transportation from island to the Jakarta mainland. But there are many positive impact for nature because the policy of large-scale social distancing give the turtle. Several times the turtle come to several islands to lay their egg, which is usually crowded with tourists. And most of the turtle can hatchling naturally without disturbance. To respond this situation, we asked local people, especially who lose their income to do patrol and monitoring ecosystem together with park staff who live within island. And while local government and many foundation or agencies think to give short-time assistance such as money or food, but national park have idea to give local people, especially who lose their income caused by national park closure from tourists, by involve them not only in ecosystem monitoring patrol, but we do many coral transplanting together with local people. May allow me to share screen if it is still anytime, sometime.
Banyak nggak? How many slides you have? Okay. Make it brief, please.
Okay. This is just a picture when the large-scale social distancing policy occur. There is no activity in the park. Very quiet.
Looks very sad.
Okay, Bu Ani.
Thank you so much. Okay, thank you again. So Now let's move on to mountain area. So I would like to invite Mr. Nguyen from Hoang Lien National Park of Vietnam. Mr. Nguyen. Mr. Nguyen, are you with us?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Could you share your experience, please?
What?
Could you share your experience from your national park?
My experience is not too much about COVID-19. Maybe called Lào Cai province in Vietnam. So far, we may have been luckier than elsewhere. And no one has yet infected this virus. But the virus around the world, and in Hoang Liên National Park, the same everywhere. No tourists. No tourists, and no income for people, for farmer. It's difficult for farmer in around national park. So they come to the point illegal to collect from forest to sell and for income, for life. So it's difficult for us to protect forests and biodiversity. We have 50 forest danger, but in our national park is large, too large. So it's difficult to protect forest. The farmer is very poor. Very poor, and now they no have income. Some not some a lot of farmer work with tourists. So now no tourists. They work with tourism, but now no tourists and no income. You see, so it's difficult for us. Although we have not infected this virus, but it's difficult for us to protect. Thank you.
Thank you. It's very glad to hear that no one from your staff and yourself are infected.
Yeah, in our yeah.
Yes, thank you so much. Okay, let's move on. Our next speaker is Mr. Abdul Jalil. He is from he's a local people from the or near the national park in Taman Negara in Malaysia. Pak Abdul Jalil, go ahead.
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank a lot to government of Indonesia and ACB for organizing this webinar. Well, first let me give some impression, just some background about our local community. We are a small village that's next to Taman Negara. Population about 2,200 people, but more than 550 uh, directly involved in ecotourism. Yeah. We have 30 resort and chalet, which is mostly owned by local community. We have 16 travel agents in the area, 25 restaurants, and have over 130 boat operator, which we are depend so much on ecotourism. Yeah? And when the lockdown, when the park closed on the 17th of March, we have zero income. So it's really affect to local community. Yeah? And the arrival of visitor in Taman Negara in 2019 is about 86,000 and 44% domestic tourists and 56% are foreign tourists. So it looks like we have a long way to go. Yeah, because we might increase the domestic tourism by 50% or 60%, but it looks like it's not easy for us to have internet foreign tourists. Okay, once lockdown, what we did is first we try to get all the information, the data from the household. We have what we did it. We try to find. We try to focus which family that we really is that really need help. So we are lucky we have we got aid from government, the grocery. So we distribute this to our local community. Yeah. And we also thank a lot to many NGOs that really help us on this. Yeah. So within this, from 17th of March to 15th of June, which is a lockdown. So we are actually really depend on the grocery aid from the government and NGO. Yeah? So it's very hard for us. So what I got feedback from most of the into our tourism sector. As I said, we are 100% zero income. So that's how it look that we can imagine that how important is Taman Negara in ecotourism for our local community. Okay, so that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So thank you for all of the speakers, Pak Abdul Jalil and others, Pak Nguyen, Mr. Nguyen, Bu Badiah, and also Angelique. So it seems that the COVID has really affect us. No tourists at all, zero income, and we heard from all of the speakers, yeah, that it's really had a bad impact on all of us. Yeah. But there is some good things. For example, wildlife breeding is increasing. We heard from Kepulauan Seribu, and then also let's get bridge from the Philippines also. Less illegal activities also from the Philippines, but more illegal activities from the Vietnam. So, but basically if we count the plus and the minuses, it's still in the minus side. So we still have lots and lots of disadvantage from this COVID-19. So hopefully in the future, there'll be no more pandemic like this. We hope that this is the last and the only one. But of course, we need to be prepared that hopefully, although we are hoping that there'll be no more like this, but we still need to be prepared. But before we are going to that another questions, ladies and gentlemen, if you have questions for our guest officials, just type in your name and organizations along with the questions, and let us know about it through Q&A in the box in Zoom or through the comment section in our Facebook Live and also YouTube. Okay, so next. So we heard about what's the situation and how it impacted the national park. I think they're not only national park but other park, yeah, natural park also. But now, at us here, how is the plan for next time? So in the next session, I would like to ask also to all of the speakers and how, sorry. Okay. What is the plan for the future? And also, is there any steps that being taken to prepare for a possible future outbreak? Hopefully not, of course. And also, what are the lessons learned in the future? So I would like to change the order. Started with Papa Abdul Jalil from Malaysia. Papa Abdul Jalil, any plans from you and also lesson learned?
Thank you very much. Okay. Well, for the recovery, what we are trying to do now is try to adapt, to make it suitable for our destination for domestic tourism. Yeah, like we'll try to put more event, a culture event, or and we've tried to promote birding tourism, birding activity, which is suited for this pandemic situation. And well, we also try to promote agriculture, edible garden for our people. Yeah. So I hope these three things at least can give something for us. Yeah. And of course, as I said, it's not that easy. Yeah, but I'm very sure we can do that. Yeah. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Next, let's hear from Vietnam, from Hoang Liên National Park, Mr. Nguyen. Do you have any plan for, I'm sure you have any plan, some plans for the future?
Yes, I'm here. So in the future, I think the government and non-government organization need to make adequate financial investment to build livelihood model for farmer to achieve stable for long-term income. So for forestation, according to the World Wildlife Fund, forests cover more than 30% of the Earth's land surface. The unstoppable growth in human population led to deforestation for resources. Industry and land for agriculture or grazing, rising average temperature and ocean level, and increased rate of extreme weather event affects not only the global land and ecosystem, but also human health. Deforestation are also linked to different types of disease due to the birth, blood-borne viral outbreak. COVID-19 is best related epidemic. To prevent this outbreak, billions of dollars are being spent to developing diagnostic treatment and medicine. But we are neglecting to primary tools prevent, such as forestation and respecting wildlife habitats. It is therefore very much important for the world to realize the significance of the forest and to encourage afforestation as much as possible throughout the world. I think many scientific have urged different countries to permanently ban the worldwide markets and trade. This action would have to protect human life from future pandemics like COVID-19. Therefore, considering the normal security, biosafety, and public health, it is essential to globally ban worldwide market and trade. I think the environment change is one of the biggest and most vital challenges of the 21st century. In spite of all their efforts to restore the nature during the last few decades, humans could only move to few steps forward. But during the last few months, consequences of the pandemic have successfully recover the environment to a larger extent that should definitely have positive impact on global climate change. Whatever be the core origin in occurrence of COVID-19 has emphasized to improve the mutually effective connection between human and nature. At this point of time, it is indispensable to control the source of disease, cut off the transmission path, and use existing drugs, and mean to control the progress of the disease proactively. Like all the preceding disasters on the earth, let all be optimistic enough that human being will definitely win over the pandemic in due course of time. But they should know the limit to which they can trust nature before it's not too late. It's before it is too late. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I like particularly your comment that we need to be very optimistic. Human being will win over this fight. So thank you so much. Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we will move on also to Kepulauan Seribu, Ibu Badiah.
Okay.
Silakan Ibu.
Okay, thank you. COVID-19 pandemic gives many lessons learned to us. We think that it is necessary to build a system of economic, social, and natural resilience to help local communities who live surrounding EHP recover from the impact of COVID-19. Socially, help local community to raise collective awareness to live more healthy. Every national park, I think, should have a protocol to keep health. And economically, to encourage local people to have the savings and to build a creative economic, such a healing tour, so that we can replace mass tourism to ecotourism. And then a virtual tour, and maybe online merchandise shop. So if the pandemic is still long happen, the people can get the income. And naturally, we have a lesson learned very important, because sometimes national park need to be closed from tourism activities to give them recovery. Although it is not easy, because local people said that how with the income from tourism. But I think steply we should raise local people awareness to sometimes national park need to be closed from tourism activities to give them recovery. Thank you, Bu Ani.
Thank you, Bu Badiah. Next, from the Philippines, Ms. Angelique.
Yes, so what did we do? You see, our park is almost 100 nautical miles away, so it's very far. And we have people there, 10 marine park rangers stay there for 2 months. And since they are alone, they have no fear of infections because there's nobody going there. But in our case, in our office, again, as I said earlier, there are less people coming. So that then we can be socially distant in the office. We're also emotionally distant because we cannot no longer hug and give each other, a kiss in the cheek. And we also installed preventive measures that are advised by the government, like, sanitizing masks and face shields and all that. We realigned our budget because some of the work that we planned for this year, we can no longer do, like public outreach activities and things like that. And then we realigned our budget also to include some funds for COVID-19 response. And again, this is new to me. All the meetings are online, and it's the quorum is easier to achieve now, but it's different, in some ways. But at least we're still able to meet together and talk. For the recovery and the future plans, we realize that this is now our new normal, and we are prepared to embrace it. And we will continue the preventive measures that the government has installed, and it can be cumbersome, but we believe that it is necessary. Dive operators, when they return and operate again into Bataha, will be required to apply these measures. I'd like to leave you with a word from Alana Shaikh, who is a global health expert. She says, human choices are driving us into a position where we are going to see more outbreaks. Part of that is about climate change and the way a warming climate makes the world more hospitable for viruses and bacteria. Also, as long as we keep making our remote places less remote, the outbreaks will keep coming. And so we're buckling up, we're getting ready, and we're preparing ourselves. Thank you.
Thank you, Angelique. Wow, we really need to prepare for everything here, including for this new normal, because Angelique remind us that because of this climate change, the disease and maybe other calamities will be here more and more in the future, spreading more. Yeah. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, so we hear many, I should say, plans, yeah, from all of the national parks of the not natural parks also, yeah. Focus on domestic tourism, for example, that's good. I think Indonesia is also aiming for that. And then promote birding and other events locally. That's also good, because during this pandemic, there'll be no tourists from outside the country. So we will have to cope with that condition. Switch to agriculture, that's also a good idea. And also from Vietnam, government and NGOs, we want them to put some investment for the farmer. That's also a good idea. So it seems that there are still many options that we need that we can take for the future. And hopefully with those plans, we can learn from each other, and then we will implement it in our park, and hopefully there'll be, we will survive in the future, despite that there'll be maybe more and more, I should say, calamities in the future, but hopefully we will survive. Okay, thank you very much again from Angelique, Mr. Nguyen, Ibu Badia, Mr. Abdul Jalil. And now we will have a second Q&A. If you haven't done so, please send us our questions to us through Q&A box in the Zoom, or through on the comment section in the Facebook Live and YouTube. Right now, I got one questions already from Ramesh Punratana. This is rather long, so I have to read it through. Okay. During the ongoing COVID-19, we have seen both biodiversity and ecosystems flourishing, primarily because humans have largely been teased out of these natural areas. What are your thoughts on the prevalent wildlife poaching, log poaching, and encroachment activities during the pandemic? I would also like to hear your opinion on the alleged incidents of timber extraction and the gazettement of parts of the protected areas for large-scale development activities. Thank you. So I think this is relevant to the park manager that is located in the terrestrial area, because it's specifically said about encroachment activities. Oh, but it could be in the marine area also, maybe wildlife poaching, encroachment also in the marine area? Okay, is there anybody from our resource person would like to give a comment on that? On wildlife poaching, log poaching, encroachment activities during the pandemic? Maybe Ibu Indra. Ibu Indra still with us because this is something that need to be answered by somebody who knows a lot about the illegal activities. Ibu Indra?
Sorry, Ibu Indra is leaving. Ibu Ani, yes, do
Okay,
another meeting.
Sorry, so Ibu Indra is not coming back. So Ibu Nining, maybe you can help with this.
Okay, thank you, Ibu Ani. So I will try to respond these questions related to the pandemic. How this pandemic is affected the communities, especially we understand that this pandemic is certainly increased the economic pressure to the communities around the conservation area. But it's not only for those who living in surrounding the park, but also in the city and urban area. So the government, for example, Indonesia, I would like to express that the government of Indonesia has been trying hard to support all people, especially people who are suffering from this COVID, such as providing all basic needs. So it's not only the people surrounding the park, the forest, but also for people who stay in the city, big city, which is very, very they feel so hard with this COVID. And then also providing compensation for the worker and also shutting down of some industry, but they also giving some incentive to people who try to maintain the economic value and also economic of the people. If we are talking about the illegal activities, especially related to the people and also illegal activities, encroachment and anything. As far as we understand that the illegal activities affected to the forest actually is not only suffering because of this pandemic. This is related to the what the people need to grow and the welfare and the economic value. So as mentioned before, the suggestion from Ibu Indra that have been raised earlier. So what we need actually is the changing of our behavior, our lifestyle, adapt to the present condition and reduce the greediness. So sorry to say that, but with all the limitation, it is necessary to involve all elements of society, especially people around the area, to protect the conservation and also the biodiversity. In Indonesia, the closures and the restriction on the visitor of the protected area have been conducted in coordination with COVID-19 task force and all relevant agency and also any institution who got mandate on this issue. So this is what I can explain in this time, Ibu Ani. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much, Ibu Nining. I was wondering maybe from the Philippines, somebody can help us to answer from the Philippines.
Can you
maybe
just...
Ibu Clarissa or whoever from the Philippines.
I'm sorry, Annie. Can you just repeat that question? It was very long.
Yes, but basically, asking you how about the all of the illegal activities in the future? Will it be because this is the illegal activities are maybe because of the pandemic also. Is there any, I should say, plan in the future that we might eliminate or decrease these illegal activities For example, this wildlife poaching, log poaching, encroachment. Yeah. Yes, I think basically because it's not too. I think it's not too clear what is meant by that. Okay.
Yeah. But anyhow, in our case, whether there's a pandemic or not, we've made sure that our investments in enforcement stay the same or increase, because we are aware that if we relax, fold our hands, and go to sleep, illegal fishes will come, because we understand that the rest of the fisheries is already in bad shape. And so the park, marine protected areas, are usually targets for illegal fishing. And so, yeah, we maintain vigilance. We still keep the same number of people and invest, if not increase our funding for enforcement. And we marry our enforcement activities to outreach activities. And right now, because of the pandemic, we are very limited to just online. We can no longer go to the fishing villages and the schools. But we still continue to give educational lectures and all that. So that's what we do. We maintain our enforcement effort, and we try to maintain, even with the limitations of the pandemic, the effort in educating and inspiring people to support marine conservation.
Thank you, Angelique. And from Vietnam, we already heard from Mr. Nguyen that to cope with this or to combat these illegal activities, 50 forest ranger is not enough, not sufficient. And they asked the government to add some more funding for that. But perhaps, is there any other things that Mr. Nguyen could add? How in the future we might combat the illegal activities in a national park simply because we got locked down? Mr. Nguyen?
Thank you. I'm here. Could you see me?
Yes, yes.
Thank you. Please add me again. I'm sorry.
Because in the future, I mean, during the lockdown, there are many illegal activities in the national park. So is there any plan for the future? How do you try to reduce the illegal activities in the park? You already mentioned about the additional forest rangers. So you need additional forest ranger, and also investment by government and NGOs financially. Is there any other things that you might add?
Yes, thank you. So now our national park, we call investment from government and some non-government organization to investment for livelihoods and we concentrate all ranger forests to protect our forest. So I think it's difficult. It's difficult for us because the farmer is poor. So as I said before, the farmer is very poor, so they have not any money. So the farmer need to live as all people. The farmer need to live. to have money. So they have no money now, no job and no money. So it's difficult for too difficult for us to protect our forest. I think it's the same as a national park. It's not only our national park. It's all national park.
All of the national park. Yes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have another questions here directed to the National Park Manager. Maybe Ibu Badia can help to answer these questions. This is from Jonathan Mayuga of the Business Mirror in the Philippines. Tourism income has decreased and somehow affected the operation. Do you see the need to prepare by saving funds in case another situation like COVID-19 pandemic happens in the future? How do you plan to make protected area management sustainable and resilient to such global health crisis?
Okay, thank you, Bu Ani. I think I try to answer Jonathan. I think it is important to raise local people awareness to save some incomes from tourism because based on our survey during COVID-19 pandemic, many local people need money assistance. But I think it is not easy because we still discuss what the form of saving so that the saving can be friendly implemented and local people can do by themselves. How do you plan to make protected area management sustainable and resilient to such global health crisis? I think it is many aspects we can do, we can plan. Now, we still ongoing a process to plan in the context of national economic recovery. We discuss frequently with the local government and local people in the Kepulauan Seribu National Park to have many plan. Yeah, as I said previously, as social aspect and then economic aspect and of course the sustainable of national park aspect we still discuss to plan how we can resilient to face the global health crisis. Bu Ani?
Thank you. Yes, thank you. I just thinking about this is so difficult time,
Yeah,
but
difficult.
yes, right. Okay, we have another question here. Maybe this is Angelique can answer because this is related to the AHP, the ASEAN Heritage Park. From Marikar Sinko, inquirer in the Philippines. How can AHP strategize and take advantage of the so-called travel bubble, where neighboring countries strike agreements to allow travels across border? And hopefully somebody from ACB, probably ACB Director, Madam Clarissa Arida also can answer this because this is related to the ASEAN Heritage Park. Angelique? Or Ibu Clarissa, okay. Miss Clarissa Arida, I think this is very, I think it's very good if you are here and to answer these questions. Go ahead.
Thank you, Ibu Ani. Yeah, good afternoon. I'm Clarissa. I'm teaching and also for Dr. Lim has left the webinar. For the ASEAN Heritage Parks, of course, we support all efforts to revive and boost sustainable nature tourism with this opportunity for travel bubbles. And this is basically an agreement between and among countries, two countries, for example, agreeing for some travel, less restrictions on travel. And what we hope is that at this time, ecotourism sites are getting the much needed support to continue maintaining the quality of the ecosystems and biodiversity in the area. Earlier in the discussion, I agree with Ibu Ning that we should be providing alternative sustainable livelihood opportunities because of this lockdown and the pandemic situation that we are facing. There are really many challenges, and one is because of the restrictions in travel. There is also restriction in patrolling through our government law enforcement. So we need to provide capacity support in terms of equipment as well. And in the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity, we are currently supporting this both on the livelihood side and providing capacities for law enforcement. But also in terms of incorporating the COVID-19 situation in the regional action plan of the ASEAN Heritage Parks, this is currently being reviewed, and based on the initial responses from our protected area managers and staff, there is common understanding that we will be incorporating these elements of COVID-19 considerations in the new regional action plan of the ASEAN Heritage Park. So thank you very much, Ibu Ani.
Thank you. So maybe also hear from the manager of Natural Park, Tubatahan Reef National Park. Angelique, is still with us? Angelique, do you have any plan for this so-called travel bubbles?
You know, in our case, most travel that happens into Bataha is on dive boats, and these are very restricted areas, very small areas. And as you know, there's not a lot of space on boats to be able to socially distance yourself from the next person. I think it's going to be quite difficult because if you can only take half the number of people you usually take on a boat, that means people will have to pay twice the amount and the cost. And I think it's going to be really, really challenging for operators of scuba diving vessels, which are our only tourists in the park. It's going to be difficult for them to operate in such conditions.
Okay, Miss Angelique, where you are, when you take the floor, not exactly the floor, the screen, could you give us the final remarks, because we are now approaching to closing?
Yes,
Angelique?
well,
yes.
I believe that what Alana Shaikh was saying, that we have to keep our remote places remote, and we have to respect our wild places. And so in that vein, we are really intending to limit the number of visitors in the park. I mean, before the COVID incident came about, we were working on doing a carrying capacity study, and that's because we want to keep Tubataha wild, and we believe that by doing so, we are protecting the values for which Tubataha is being protected and held as a World Heritage and an ASEAN Heritage Park. I leave you with the words of Carlos Santana, who said, "You've got to change your evil ways, baby." Are you aware of that?
We are evil. We are evil.
Yeah, that's our age. Yeah.
Okay.
So,
we are evil
thank you,
and
Annie.
greed and greedy.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, Angelique. Ibu Badia, do you have any closing comment?
Yeah.
Evil and greedy, and what else?
Okay. I think COVID-19 pandemic give many lesson learned to us, and besides the negative impact, but we realized that many positive impact we can learn, especially to the nature ecosystem. So since now we should plan integratively many aspects so that we can manage our EHP sustainable. Thank you, Bu Ani.
Thank you so much. Pak Abdul Jalil, although you are not the manager of the national park, but your livelihood is depend on the national park. So your last comment, please, before we close this session. Yes.
Okay. Regarding the COVID-19 pandemic, what I've learned about it, it's very important for us to build up the sustainability on ecotourism. And it's a vital important. If we just thinking about this only this time, not about the future of ecotourism, I think we're going to have a problem. So part of being depend on ecotourism, we also have to find the alternative for the livelihood of local community. Maybe agriculture, especially for those who live next to protected area. What I'm thinking now, well, agriculture, a good practice of agriculture like permaculture, which is good for nature and good for
people.
Yeah. So I keep on thinking now, or even I practice myself now to build up my own small permaculture, which is give a minimum impact to nature and at the same time providing food for my family, and then also good for wildlife. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Pak Abdul Jalil. Last comments, final remarks is from Mr. Nguyen. Could you give us a short remarks from your side?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yes.
Thank you. Please say that again.
Any final remarks from you? Final comment from you. Final word from you.
Yeah, thank you. I think Vietnam military, public security, and local authority are conducting comprehensive inspection to locate and document individuals throughout Vietnam.
Okay.
The Vietnam government continue to suspend entry into Vietnam to all foreigners, including people with Vietnamese visa exemption certificate. This policy has very limited exemption for diplomatic officer duty. and special cases, including first business manager, foreign investor, and high-tech worker of business involved in important projects determined by the government of Vietnam. Finally, the unification is not one of the exemption.
Yes, I think we got the message. So basically, limit the person who is going in and out of Vietnam and also within national park. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, everybody. With that, then we thank our speakers who provide us with very informative facts and situation on the ground, and also to the audience who had made our sessions more lively through the questions sent to us. Again, thanks a lot to everybody. And with that, I conclude my task as the moderator. And Earl, back to you, Earl.
Terima kasih banyak, Prof. Ani.
Terima kasih sama-sama. You're welcome.
Okay. So before we close, may I request the initial speakers to also provide their short message. Maybe we could start with Ibu Nining.
Thank you, Earl. So again, we are coming to the end of this webinar. So I would like to invite all of us to think again how we can improve our emotion, our connection with our nature. Because when we improve our nature, I think this is also what we need, because it might be give an impact to balancing function of the nature ecosystem as our home, our habitat. Then, and also I would like to, one thing that I forgot this morning to share with you is how we can think more again, how we utilize and intensify the technology for monitoring the biodiversity, exploring and improving the benefit to the people with all possible alternatives to improve the effectiveness management of the park. And the last thing, we hope that we can consider again the carrying capacity using the virtual tourism activities, and also could be provided to maintain the connection, more healthier connection with the nature. So we hope we can achieve the Vision 2050, living in harmony with nature. Thank you all.
Terima kasih banyak, Ibu Nining. And lastly, may we have the remarks from the ACB? May we call on Ms. Risa?
Thank you, Earl. Yeah, I second our speakers. We also hope that more members of the public of our society will be engaged more in promoting nature-based solutions, correcting our lifestyles and behaviors that help in addressing pandemics and preventing the emergence and spread of zoonotic diseases in the future. I hope that we will continue to recognize the importance of investing in our ASEAN heritage parks, investing in nature, which provides valuable resources and ecosystem services to all of us. Let us not forget that all these efforts will also greatly contribute to our resilience against the impacts of climate change and sustainable livelihood. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Risa. And thank you to everyone who joined us in this afternoon's discussion. Due to the limited time that we have, some questions will be answered through email after the webinar. We hope for your understanding, and we thank you for actively participating in this webinar. I hope that the takeaways we have from this event will help propel us toward actions for biodiversity conservation. We thank our speakers today for sharing how our brave and innovative park officials have quickly strategized to face the challenges caused by the pandemic. We would also like to thank Prof. Ani for sharing with us her expertise as she led the discussions, the very rich discussions on the condition of our ASEAN heritage parks. To Pak Wiratno, Ibu Indra, Ibu Nining, Dr. Mondita, and Miss Risa, Miss Angelique, Mr. Tam, Ibu Badia, and Pak Jalil, our sincerest gratitude for sharing your time and knowledge. Please follow the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity social media accounts for announcements on upcoming events such as this webinar. You can find us again on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. And also, we are inviting everyone to join this year's staging of Zooming In on Biodiversity, an ASEAN-wide photo contest. This is open to all amateur and professional photographers of the ASEAN. To learn more about the contest, please visit www.aseanbiodiversity.org/zoomingin. Here's a short video to tell us more about Zooming In on biodiversity. So don't forget to send in your photo entries by the 21st of September. That concludes our webinar. On behalf of the ASEAN Center for Biodiversity and the Directorate General of Conservation on Natural Resources and Ecosystem, thank you everyone and good afternoon.
Thank you.